Chosen ones. You thought healing would make your life feel lighter, and in some ways it did. But maybe no one warned you that it could also make your circle quieter, stranger, smaller. Maybe you started becoming more honest, more grounded, more at peace. And instead of feeling more connected, you started noticing distance, delayed replies, different energy, sudden tension in places that used to feel familiar. That is the part many chosen ones do not understand at first. You expect healing to bring people closer, but sometimes the healthier you become, the more certain relationships start to feel unnatural, forced, heavy. Not because you became cold, not because you think you are better than anyone, but because inner repair changes what you can keep calling normal. And this can hurt in a very private way. Because some people did not pull away when you were hurting. They pulled away when you stopped being easy to guilt, easy to manage, easy to drain. That kind of loss can make you question your progress. It can make you wonder if healing is making you selfish, difficult, too sensitive. But what if that is not the truth? What if what feels like rejection is actually a painful kind of alignment? Now, to stay grounded, not every smaller circle means growth. Sometimes it can come from fear, avoidance, or exhaustion, and that difference matters. But before you judge your smaller circle as failure, there is something you need to let yourself remember. So, if this has been your experience, let this channel be one place where you do not have to explain your growth. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone healing quietly too. Because the first thing healing changes is not your circle. It is what your nervous system can no longer call love. Number 1. When your body stops calling pain love. And this is where it often begins. Not with a dramatic ending, not with some instant clarity, but with a quiet shift inside you that you cannot fully explain yet. The same people are still there, the same conversations are still happening, but something in you no longer relaxes the way it used to. Something feels heavier, stranger, harder to ignore. A lot of chosen ones were not only connected to people through love, you were also connected through stress, through overgiving, through rescuing, through staying silent to keep the peace, through constantly reading the room so nothing would go wrong. You thought that was closeness, you thought that was loyalty, but sometimes what felt deep was actually just intense. What felt important was unpredictable. What felt like a bond was built around your ability to absorb discomfort without naming it. That is why healing can feel so confusing at first, because healing does not only make you feel better, it makes you feel more accurately. Your nervous system starts recalibrating, and when that happens, what once felt familiar can start to feel performative, pressured, or emotionally unsafe. Why did peace start feeling real only after certain people felt distant? That question matters. Psychologically, this makes sense. The nervous system often confuses familiarity with safety, especially when you have spent years around inconsistent affection, emotional chaos, or relationships where love had to be earned through self-abandonment. So, no, this does not mean every difficult relationship is toxic, and it does not mean you should run from all discomfort. It means your body may finally be learning the difference between pressure and peace. You may notice you laugh less at disrespect, you stop chasing crumbs, you stop carrying the whole emotional load by yourself, and almost overnight, the relationship feels different. Not because you became harsh, but because you became honest. And once your inner system stops confusing chaos with closeness, the next painful truth begins to surface. Some relationships were never built to survive your wholeness. Number 2, some people loved your wounds, not your growth. And this is where the pain becomes more personal, because once you start changing on the inside, you begin to notice something you may not have wanted to see. Some people felt most comfortable with you when you were unsure of yourself, when you were still over-explaining, still over-giving, still leaving the door open no matter how drained you felt, still making room for behavior that cost you your peace. But when you became calmer, clearer, more honest, more boundaried, something shifted. The energy changed, their warmth changed, their access changed. And for many chosen ones, this is one of the hardest parts to accept, because it can feel like your healing ruined the bond. But what if that is not the most honest reading? What if your healing did not ruin the bond? It revealed the bargain beneath it. That does not always mean those people were evil. It does not always mean they sat around consciously planning to keep you small. Sometimes it simply means the relationship was built around an older version of you, a version that carried more, tolerated more, questioned less, and returned no matter what. Systems get attached to roles. Families do this, friend groups do this, even one-on-one relationships do this. And when one person stops performing the old part, the whole structure can start resisting. Maybe you were the listener, the fixer, the forgiving one, the one who absorbed tension so everyone else could stay comfortable, the one who made other people feel secure by staying small. So when you stopped doing that, they did not always know how to meet you in a new way. And that hurts, because part of you hoped real love would welcome your freedom. Part of you hoped the people who loved you in pain would love you in peace. So why do some people miss the version of you that was suffering? Sometimes because your wounds made you easier to predict, easier to reach, easier to lean on without question. But the circle does not only get smaller because people resist your growth, it also gets smaller because healing changes what you can finally hear beneath their words. Number 3, you start hearing what used to hide inside normal. And this is where healing becomes even harder to explain, because now it is not only changing how you feel, it is changing what you can hear. The same words land differently, the same jokes feel sharper. The same invitations that once felt warm now feel strangely transactional. Some conversations leave you tired instead of connected, and you may not understand why until much later. This is one of the loneliest parts of growth, because from the outside, nothing dramatic may have happened, no huge betrayal, no obvious explosion. Just a growing awareness that something you once called normal has started to feel expensive, and that can make you question yourself. Am I becoming too sensitive? Am I overreading everything? Or am I finally hearing what was always there? Healing does not always make you more dramatic. Very often, it makes you more honest about cost. Your sensitivity starts maturing into discernment. What once looked like humor may begin to reveal contempt. What once looked like closeness may begin to reveal entitlement. What once looked like loyalty may begin to reveal dependency. And that shift can be deeply unsettling, because it means some of your old comfort was built on not fully listening to your own signal. Psychologically, this makes sense. When you are less dissociated, less approval hungry, and less desperate to keep attachment at any cost, your pattern recognition becomes clearer. You start noticing tone, timing, energy, the small guilt hooks in ordinary conversations, the subtle ways you get pulled into roles you have outgrown. Why does the same room feel different when you are no longer desperate to belong? Because you are finally present enough to hear what your survival mode used to filter out. Now, this does need nuance. Discernment is not perfection. Sometimes early healing can make you hyper-aware, and not every awkward moment means harm. So this is not about assuming bad intent everywhere. It is about no longer abandoning your own perception just to keep other people comfortable. And once you can hear the hidden pattern, the next decision becomes unavoidable. You have to choose whether healing will stay internal or become relational. If this is helping you understand why certain losses still hurt, like the video, subscribe and share it with someone carrying this kind of quiet grief. You are not weak for mourning what no longer fits. Because seeing the pattern is only the middle. The harder part is living differently. Number 4. Boundaries do not just protect you, they reveal people. And this is where healing stops being private. Because up to this point, a lot of what changed was happening inside you. Your awareness changed, your tolerance changed, your sense of what felt normal changed. But boundaries are where that inner shift becomes visible, not just to you, but to everyone around you. You may have noticed that some people seemed supportive when you were always available, when you answered right away, when you rescued without being asked, when you kept saying yes, even while your body was quietly saying no. But the moment you became clearer, slower to respond, less eager to overgive, and more careful with your energy, the relationship started feeling different, and that can be deeply confusing. Because boundaries do not create all conflict, very often they uncover the conflict that was being hidden by your compliance. That is an important difference. What changes when your kindness no longer comes with self-abandonment? Sometimes, everything. This is part of healing that people rarely talk about. Healing is not only insight, it is embodiment. It is when you stop saying yes with resentment, when you stop explaining healthy limits like apologies, when you stop performing constant access as proof of love. And psychologically, that shift can feel threatening to people who benefited from the old version of you. Not always because they are evil, but because the old structure worked for them. That is why some people interpret your boundary as rejection, when really it is just reality. A healthy relationship may feel some friction when roles begin to change, so the goal is not zero discomfort. The real question is whether there is respect, adaptation, and mutual reality on the other side of that discomfort. Some people will actually move closer when you become clearer. They will meet you with more honesty, more maturity, more care. Others will retreat, not because you became cruel, but because they were attached to convenience, not connection. And who gets upset when you stop over-functioning? That question reveals more than most words ever will. But even after boundaries reveal the truth, another ache remains, because losing people can still feel like losing parts of your own history. Number 5. The grief is real, even when the loss is right. And this is the part many people do not talk about enough. You can know a relationship was draining and still miss it with your whole heart. You can feel clearer, stronger, more honest, and still feel deeply lonely. You can stop reaching out, stop reopening the same door, stop betraying your own peace, and still ache when the silence becomes real. That does not mean you made the wrong choice. It does not mean your healing is false. It does not mean you secretly need to go back. Sometimes grief is not a vote for return. Sometimes it is simply the soul and the body telling the truth about what mattered, what was hoped for, and what never fully became what you needed it to be. And that is where this gets even more painful, because often you are not only grieving the person, you are grieving the promise. You are grieving the version of them you kept meeting in small moments, the version that made you believe one day things would finally become safe, mutual, or whole. Are you grieving the person, or the future you kept building around them in your mind? For many chosen ones, that is the deeper loss. Psychologically, this makes sense. The brain and body do not always respond to healthy change with immediate relief. They often respond with protest. Separation feels like loss. Broken routines feel like loss. Uncertainty feels like loss. Even when the distance is right, the nervous system can still mourn what became familiar. So no, grief is not weakness, and grief is not proof that you should return to what was hurting you. But this does need nuance. A smaller circle is not supposed to turn into permanent isolation. Grief should soften you into truth, not harden you into superiority. The goal is not to become unreachable. It is to stop running back to what costs you yourself. And maybe that is why the pain feels so strange. Healing cost you people, yes, but sometimes the deepest cost was the illusion that those bonds were eventually going to become what your heart kept begging for. And when grief stops being a command to go backward, healing can ask a quieter question: what is this smaller circle actually making room for? Number 6. Smaller is not emptier, it can be truer. And this is where the meaning starts to change. Because after enough distance, enough silence, enough endings you did not want but could no longer avoid, there is often a strange stillness, fewer messages, fewer forced check-ins, fewer crowded conversations that leave you drained, and at first, that quiet can feel like failure. Especially if you were taught to measure love by access, closeness by frequency, and belonging by how many people could still reach you. But what if peace feels empty only because chaos was loud? That is an important question, because healing often reduces noise before it rebuilds intimacy. It clears out what was performative, one-sided, or emotionally expensive before it teaches you what real connection actually feels like. And real connection is often much quieter than the relationships that trained your nervous system. It is steadier, simpler, less confusing, less theatrical, less demanding. It does not require you to fracture yourself just to stay included. So yes, your circle may be smaller now, but smaller does not automatically mean lonelier in the deepest sense. Sometimes it means your life is no longer organized around managing misalignment. It means fewer relationships built on guilt, over-explaining, emotional maintenance, and constant shape-shifting. It means you are becoming more careful with where your energy goes, more honest about what trust requires, and more drawn to people who do not need a diminished version of you to feel comfortable. Now this needs grounding. This is not about glorifying isolation. Healing should not make you allergic to people. Over time, it should make you more capable of calm, mutual, respectful connection. But it may also make you slower to trust, cleaner with your energy, and less willing to perform for belonging. And that is not nothing. Your circle may be smaller because your self-betrayal is smaller too. That is a profound shift. And from there, the ending becomes clear. Healing did not simply take people away. It asked you to stop calling misalignment belonging. Finally, number 7. The circle got smaller, but the truth got clearer. And this is the deeper truth underneath all of it. Healing can make your circle smaller because it changes what you normalize, what you tolerate, what you keep excusing, and what you are no longer willing to betray in yourself just to stay included. That is why the losses can feel so confusing. From the outside, it may look like people simply drifted, but inside, something more honest was happening. You were no longer able to call misalignment connection. That does not make the pain less real. A smaller circle is not always easy, and it is not always instant proof of awakening, wisdom, or emotional superiority. Sometimes it is simply a sign that your life is becoming more truthful, that your peace is becoming less negotiable, that your belonging is no longer built on disappearing inside other people. And this is where many chosen ones get it twisted. Your path may feel lonely, but not because you are above people, not because you were made to stand apart from everyone forever. Sometimes it feels lonely because you are finally learning how to stay with yourself, instead of abandoning yourself to keep connection alive. So the goal was never a huge circle, it was a true one. The goal was never constant access. It was peace that does not ask you to shrink. The right people will not need your pain in order to feel close to you. Let your healing be expensive if the price is pretending no longer works. And if this put language to something you have been carrying quietly, do not leave it here. If this spoke to something deep in you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone whose healing has also come with quiet loss. This channel is for chosen ones, rebuilding their lives with more truth, more peace, and less self-abandonment. Some circles shrink so your real life can finally begin. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video. Until then, take good care of yourself. Goodbye.